Welcome back to a new episode of Marvel Man 901. In this episode I'm going to talk about Venom Lethal Protector. This is the first of a many series of limited series featuring Venom from the 90s. This is from 1993 and it is written by David Michelinie, art by Mark Bagley and Ron Lim, and inked by Sam De La Rosa and Al Milgrom. So before I go into the story in itself, I'm going to give you some background information about what Venom and Spider-Man pretty much has come into agreement about. Previously, there's been a lot of difficulties between Spider-Man and Venom when Venom was inside New York. Lastly, eventually, Spider-Man and Venom agreed that if Venom would leave New York to Spider-Man, Spider-Man wouldn't hunt him. Spider-Man eventually agreed to this, pretty much because he believed that Venom had a sense of responsibility when it came to hurting innocent people. He knew that Venom went for bad guys, but in his own special way, and eventually he would have to stop him later on again. But this was a lot easier to get rid of him because, well, let's face it, Venom is a handful. Now though, Eddie Brock / Venom has come to San Francisco, where he is pretty much hunting down criminals to save innocent people. In the first scene here, he fights this pretty much a low-life guy who's trying to rob a lady, and he kills this guy right in front of her. She is of course completely terrified about this, and he believes himself to be a grand hero. He is of course hunted by the police, and when he's trying to get a place to stay, they show up and try to arrest him. Now back in New York, Peter Parker learns that Venom has ended up in San Francisco. He thinks back on why it's his responsibility to stop Venom. He thinks about how he had brought the symbiote, this alien symbiote from Secret Wars Battle World, and he had brought it to New York, to Earth, and of course back then he didn't realize that it was alive and that it was very menacing. But when he got rid of it, it pretty much emotionally scarred the symbiote, which went after Eddie Brock, who had also been emotionally scarred by Spider-Man. In his own twisted way, he believed that Spider-Man has ruined his life when he had pretty much claimed some innocent person who had been, at that time, suspected of being the serial killer called Sin Eater. But Spider-Man captured the real murderer, and Eddie Brock pretty much lost his job, his self-respect, everything. When Spider-Man eventually got rid of the symbiote, it attached itself to Eddie Brock. When it got joined with Eddie Brock, it became very powerful in its hatred against Spider-Man, and it became one of his deadliest foes. Now though, back to San Francisco, where Spider-Man has just arrived, Venom noticed some people pretty much harassing some homeless people in a park. So naturally he does what he does, and he attacks these guys who has guns. Spider-Man shows up in the park while he's looking for Venom, and naturally believes that Venom is just trying to hurt innocent people. So naturally he attacks Venom, but both of them are then attacked by these so-called innocents who has weapons, and during the confusion of the attack, Spider-Man loses sight of Eddie Brock, who had gone underground with the people who he had actually saved. Apparently these people were homeless people who lived beneath the earth in a place called Sanctuary. Brock learns that a person called Roland Trees had been trying to drive these people away from their homes. Why, he doesn't really know. However, before they even come to Sanctuary, they are attacked by diggers, who pretty much are huge mechanical things with people inside them. So naturally Venom is fighting these things, and they are very heavily equipped with powerful drills and such. Eventually they fall through the earth down into this pretty much city underneath the ground, which had pretty much been forgotten. Now in the second issue, Venom continues his fight with the diggers, and eventually he does manage to defeat them in his own brutal way. Meanwhile now, Spider-Man finds out that apparently Eddie Brock's father still lives in San Francisco. He's called Carl Brock. So he believes that might be something that somewhere where Venom might actually go. Meanwhile now in Sanctuary, Eddie Brock learns that he is not allowed to remain in Sanctuary, as the council has voted against him. He is forced to leave immediately. Now Peter Parker shows up to talk to Carl Brock, but the door is pretty much slammed in his face. Now, Venom has figured out a way to possibly get accepted by the people of Sanctuary, and he believes that if he takes away the threat of Sanctuary, he will become their hero instead. So he goes off to find Roland trees or some information about why he wants sanctuary. And so he goes to the building called Trees International to find out more. He manages to break in fairly easily, but is then attacked by guards. Meanwhile now, Spider-Man talks to Carl Brock, but it's not an easy conversation. Meanwhile, back in Trees International, Venom continues to fight the guards. That eventually he realizes that he can't really win because he can't find any more information on what he needs, so he gets out of there, but is attacked by the jury. So in the third issue, Venom learns more about who this jury is, this team of, well, pretty much Iron Man-esque armored-clad people who apparently all are out for revenge. Now the leader of this, the founder of the jury, who is Orwell Taylor, he wanted revenge as Venom had apparently killed his son Hugh while he was trying to escape the vault. Naturally, it's a huge regret for Venom, even before knowing that the jury would come. But eventually, he has to fight the jury. Now, the jury is actually created and trained, modified to fight Venom. So they have all of his weaknesses in mind, using a lot of sonics, a lot of fire. So that fight is gonna be pretty epic. Now, meanwhile, back at Carl Brock, he is very adamant that he will not talk to Spider-Man at all. So he pretty much just leaves him there and pretty much tells him to leave or I will have the police remove you. However, now the housekeeper who had been with Carl Brock for a very, very long time, even before Eddie Brock was born, her name is actually Sharon Dempsey, by the way, she agreed to talk to Spider-Man. But now back to Venom in his fight against the jury. Against the jury, it is actually leading him to this bridge where a lot of innocent people are around. Now the jury aren't very much into protecting the innocent people, not as Venom is. So he is really trying to not get people involved in this. At the same time, he's getting his ass kicked. Now back with Spider-Man and Sharon Dempsey again. She pretty much explains to Spider-Man that throughout his entire life, Carl Brock has been fairly cold until he met Jamie, who he would marry and then have a child with. He absolutely loved her, but when she died giving birth to Eddie, that part of him that allowed him to care for another person died as well. He wasn't abusive or cruel or anything like that. He tried to still give his son what he would possibly need, best education, health, latest toys, anything like that. But Eddie never really got any affection and love from his father, which is what he needed most. And he tried every possible way to get his attention, affection. And when the whole Sin Eater story broke, and when it came out that Eddie Brock had pretty much said that the wrong person had done it and was completely disgraced, the communication between the two of them completely ceased. Which gives a lot of insight into Eddie Brock in itself, and it explains so much as why the hatred against Spider-Man was so big, so intense after the whole Sin Eater business. Anyway, now back again with Venom and the jury. He is beaten bad. He realizes that can't continue like this, and he actually gets some help from above. Well, from a helicopter, who pretty much offers sanctuary and a proposition. Now this is apparently Roland Trees, who is trying to get his information and obviously trying to get him into a trap. Now Venom realizes this, but he believes that this is the easiest way to get to Trees. So he's brought into the desert to a place where he believes he will still have the upper hand. But he is so very wrong about this, as he is captured. Now in the fourth issue, we are actually introduced to the first new symbiote, who's called Scream. This is now where Ron Lim takes over as the main penciler of this issue, this story as well. Venom is captured, and he is actually captured by Carlton Drake, who is part of the Life Foundation. They are apparently in the Mojave Desert. So what Drake is doing here is pretty much taking out the seeds that is inside the Venom symbiote in order to create his own symbiotes, symbiotic soldiers. He brings out 5 in total, the last of the seeds. And we are also introduced now to this first of these people who actually are the new symbiotes, who is Scream. Her real name is actually Donna Diego. Now she is pretty much testing out, or being tested, by attacking people in a mall. Spider-Man happened to be around, and he of course went on the defense for these people. Venom eventually managed to break free through his cunning, but he is very easily recaptured once again. Now back to Spider-Man and Scream. The fight between these two are very, very special, as it always is with symbiotes. However, Spider-Man realizes that Scream is very new to the symbiote. She isn't overly confident in what she does. She doesn't really know what she can do, and well, eventually she escapes by throwing a person, an innocent bystander really, towards the window, but Spider-Man saves him. When Scream escapes, she uses this hovercraft, which Spider-Man then latches onto, and eventually comes to the Mojave Desert Life Foundation area where Venom is captured at the moment. He fights the guards and then sees on a TV screen that after they had removed the symbiote from Eddie Brock, he apparently died. He is also introduced to the rest of the symbiotes as well, all 5 of them. Of course, we have Scream. We also have Phage, who is Carl Mack, Riot, who is Trevor Cole, Lasher, his real name is Ramon Hernandez, and Agony, who is Leslie Gesniera. Now in the 5th issue, Spider-Man has to fight these symbiotes. Meanwhile though, Eddie Brock turns out actually to be alive, naturally, as we would be very short series otherwise. He defeats the guards and then tries to get to his symbiote. Spider-Man meanwhile fights these new symbiotes, and while he realizes they are very new at this, he also realizes they are very different from both Carnage and Venom. And of course there are 5 of them. So he is very much underhanded, very much in trouble really. Eddie Brock shows up, and while it didn't really go according to plan to him, he and Spider-Man though has to work together, and while they do this, we go back to Sanctuary once again, where they continue to discuss both about what Roland Trees is about to do with the park, where he had brought explosives and all that, and the fact that they need Venom. If they had Venom, if they had Eddie Brock, he would be able to save them. So there's a lot of discussion there really. Meanwhile, now back at the Mojave Desert place again, Spider-Man and Eddie Brock uses these sonic weapons in order to defeat the symbiotes. Not an easy task though, there are still 5 of them, but eventually Venom is reunited with his human host, and so he's back again. Venom eventually actually figures out a way how he can defeat the other symbiotes, and he pretty much so-called kills them. If you read later issues, such as the story about separation anxiety, you know that they actually survived. Now, both Spider-Man and Venom leaves in their own ways from the Mojave Desert place. Now to the last issue of this story, issue 6, Venom is trying to find out what he can about Roland Trees. So he goes to Trees International, or a place where Trees has his information, his men, and tries to get info from them. He goes through every sort of security they have very easily, defeats the person and pretty much scares information out of him. He learns that Roland Trees was actually out to get this big gold vein, which is underneath the park, underneath Sanctuary, and which is why he's trying to get these people away from there. Now we also learn that he believes that if the city of San Francisco, if people around there know about the gold, they of course will claim it as it's their property, which is why he's trying to do all of this in the shadows, in the backgrounds. Knowing this, Venom naturally realizes that he has to be fast about this, because naturally so will Roland Trees be. He is again attacked by Spider-Man though, but after subduing Spider-Man, he pretty much convinces Spider-Man to help him by just doing that, asking for help, which really throws Spider-Man off. Again, he sees that he's actually just out to protect innocent people, and if he actually is willing to let Spider-Man live, that really weighs a lot. So eventually Spider-Man and Venom goes to the park where they fight Roland Trees and his people and his diggers. Again, these diggers are very powerful, but then again, Spider-Man and Venom has fought a lot of dangerous and powerful opponents before. They manages to pretty much defeat the diggers. Venom goes out to stop Roland Trees through fire and all, and then he pretty much saves Roland Trees from the fire. Again, showing to Spider-Man that this guy is actually pretty much a hero. Venom, however, manages to escape when the sirens come, and Spider-Man realizes that he actually could leave him be again. Eddie Brock turns up in front of the council once again, and they this time have difference of opinion. They actually allow him to stay. Not all of them are incredibly happy about this, but, well, he is allowed to remain. So that is pretty much it. That is the Lethal Protector story. I hope you've enjoyed this. Make sure to follow me, both on Spotify and in YouTube, and have a good day.